Okay, I'll probably give it a couple of minutes and let some of the attendees pile in, hopefully.
I didn't get the note that we were supposed to wear plaid.
Still time. It has to be exclusively green and yellow as well.
Or just collared shirts. You're in on that.
Yeah.
Cool. Welcome, Sherry. We'll give it a couple more minutes and let some of the attendees join before we'll get started. Okay, cool. We'll give it a little bit of time, and this will be a recorded session, so I think we could go ahead and get it kicked off if that works for everyone here. So welcome to this afternoon's Lightning Design Jam. My name is Bryce, and I will be the host and moderator for today's event, as the team covers the topic of how to build genuine connections as a remote team. Over the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour, we will be covering the following topics. One, the goal and structure of a Lightning Design Jam. Two, how to facilitate them remotely using Miro, which is a digital whiteboarding tool that we're all currently working off of now. And three, hopefully demonstrating how bringing together members from cross-functional teams can come together to identify the right solution and an actionable path forward. But before we get started, a few housekeeping items that we wanted to cover. One, first off, I want to ask all of the thoughtbot team members to go ahead and bring their cursors into the cursor zoo here, just to make sure that we're all here and ready to go. Next, we'll be covering a couple of best practices for how to get the most out of Miro and your session. So over the course of today's LDJ, our team members will have created hundreds of different ideas and sticky notes, and being able to simply copy and paste that will speed up that process exponentially. So rather than using the sidebar on the right to create sticky notes, the idea of being able to click on an existing sticky note, hit Control-C, Control-V, and being able to write in your new idea is something that will save you a lot of time when you're conducting these sessions on your own or you're participating in your own LDJ. Next, before we get into the workshop, I'm going to go ahead and ask the thoughtbot members to introduce themselves in this next exercise. So by going ahead and writing their name, the role that they'll be playing for this webinar, as well as one of the things that they're wanting to accomplish during today's session. And so joining us today, we'll have Andrew, Jason, and Stephen, who are all designers and developers currently on the Liftoff team. Awesome. So it looks like some of the things that we're looking to accomplish today are: one, being able to complete the LDJ in an hour time. Two, come together for great ideas. Three, hear teammates' thoughts and ideas. And four, discover ways to make remote work a little bit more engaging and valuable for all. Now that we've covered a couple of the housekeeping items around who the team members are, some of the best tips, and practices, it's time to get started with the design workshop. So before we even get started, the first thing that we're going to want to do is define the workshop's goal. And in this particular point, the moderator would introduce the focus of the workshop goal, which for this case, for all intents and purposes, will be how to build connections as a remote team. As a forward, this is a goal that should be defined before the workshop, as all of the subsequent discussion and the exercises to follow will be predicated off of it as well. So now that we've defined the workshop's goal, it's time to move on to step one, which is starting on a positive note. The team members on the webinar will have 5 minutes for this exercise to think of as many positive elements that are moving us forward towards our goal of building genuine connections as a remote team. They will use a green sticky notes list posted below and will continue to write their ideas until the time is up. This is an exercise that will be done silently and without discussion, and we'll slowly follow the arrow down here to bring us to our sailboat canvas. The idea here is that the team members will be listing all of their different ideas on the top as items that are moving us forward towards building genuine connections. And the idea here is that these items on the very top half of the matrix act as kind of the wind to the sail, or items that are moving us forward. The team can decide to work directly on the matrix if they choose, or if they want a little bit more of their own private space and time, they can use each of their individualized working sessions below. And once the time is up in their respective session, copy all of their ideas and simply paste them on the matrix to make it a little bit easier. So now that we've covered a few housekeeping items and have explained the purpose and the instructions for step one, I'm going to go ahead on the very top right to click on the timer button, set some music so that our team members can work and not have to work in silence. And if we're all good to go, we can go ahead and get started with the first step.
Cool. Let's do it.
Cool. So while the team is going about it and starting to think of ideas that are helping us move forward, first wanted to cover some of the items or some of the best practices on step one. So one of the things that we really want to focus on are the items that we're currently working on today versus using this as a time to ideate future solutions that we're wanting to implement. The idea here for starting on a positive note is, one, to get a lot of the good ideas going and have a lot of the good energy flowing. And two, starting with the positives also help make it a little bit easier to think of the problems and the challenges that we're currently facing as well. Awesome. Looks like a lot of really good ideas so far. Looks like we're about halfway done, just to give everyone a time check. And while the team is going at it, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was why this activity is done silently and without discussion. In the early phases of an LDJ, it's all about getting as many ideas out there as possible. And without being able to have bias or have someone with a strong opinion sway the discussion, the idea is that we're giving each of the team members a space to come up with all the ideas or think of as many things as possible without really having their opinions or decisions swayed for as, what may be the right way to go. One minute left. And if you're all done ideating or feel like you've exhausted all of the positive things or ideas, you could go ahead and start by dragging up your sticky notes to the very top and placing them on the sailboat canvas. This could either be done by individually dragging each of the sticky notes or by copy and pasting all of the green sticky notes that currently have text and pasting them on the top half of our sailboat matrix. Awesome. So now that we've run out the timer, the team is going ahead by bringing all their ideas to the very top. And before we move on to the next exercise, we're going to go ahead and look through the sticky notes that we currently have to identify duplicates, to stack them on top of each other, just to make sure that we are prioritizing the most effectively later on. Great. So while the team is doing that, I'll go ahead and move us on to step 2. So now that we've taken the time to list out all of the different positive thoughts or positive elements that are moving us forward towards us reaching our goal, it's time to move on to step 2, which is capturing the problems. And in this exercise, the team members will have another 5 minutes to think of all of the challenges that are currently holding us back from reaching our goal of building genuine connections as a remote team. Similar to what they did in the first exercise, the team will go ahead and write all of their ideas on the orange sticky notes, and will continue to do so until the time runs out. Just like the first activity, this is done silently and without discussion. And once the team has organized the board by the similar activities or by removing any duplicates, we should be good to go. Cool. So whenever y'all are ready, we could go ahead and get started with the second exercise, which is writing down the challenges that are holding us back from building genuine connections as a remote team. Cool. Looks like everyone's at their individualized workstation. So I'm going to go ahead and change the music up and give them another 5 minutes to go ahead.
Bryce, you could maybe read through the other cards for the audience.
Yep. And so now that we have a little bit of time, we could go ahead and look at some of the items that we feel like we're doing well as a team. Looks like we have Slack channels for hobbies and social ideas and/or random topics. Wordle games, impromptu 15-minute chats with coworkers that are kind of assigned at random. Our internal tool that we use to kind of communicate across the company. Remote tools like Miro that help us collaborate in real time and really kind of simulate what it would be like to work in the office. Being able to showcase jokes and personality in meetings. Ability to have daily stand-ups where we could hop in without an agenda and just kind of hang out with the rest of the team members. Work on investment time projects with other people or other teammates. Slack channels with, around the topic of pets. Connecting with regionalized or local coworkers in real life. So taking the time to get out of our desk and be able to, either co-work or hang out with some of our other fellow thoughtbotters. A perpetual lounge video for random calls and chats anytime team members want to hop in. Game times and fun activities, remote pairing, and employee-led technical trainings, care packages, and company-wide social gatherings and workshops. So a lot of things that we're currently doing here at thoughtbot to move us forward to building genuine connections as a team. And now the team, like I was saying a little bit beforehand, is taking the time to write down different ideas or different thoughts around what is currently holding us back from really building these strong connections. And it looks like we're almost halfway done. So just wanted to give everyone a little bit of a time check as well. All right, looks like we're getting close to a minute left. So if we're kind of nearing it, wrap up some of your final ideas, get organized, and when you're ready, please bring your orange sticky notes and nest them on the bottom half of the sailboat matrix. And we have about 30 seconds left during step 2. All right, so looks like we're wrapping up. Very similar to what we did at the very end of phase 1 or step 1. The team is now going through to identify any duplicates, group by similar themes, and just cleaning up the Miro board for us to, jump into our next exercise, which is prioritization. So now that we've taken the time to capture the problems that are holding us back as a team, it's time to prioritize the problems that we're currently experiencing. So during this activity, the moderator will read through all of the orange sticky notes that the team took the time to create, And from there on out, the team will have 3 minutes to place their 3 red voting dots on the sticky notes that they feel like are the most crucial challenges that are holding us back. Once again, this activity will be done silently and without discussion. So moving down to the whiteboard, it looks like some of the things that we feel like are holding us back are Zoom fatigue and video meeting fatigue, feeling isolated and generally lonely sitting at a desk all day, scheduling impromptu chats compete with scheduled meetings, and we don't want to interrupt people that are busy, miss having coffee breaks and being able to get lunch with coworkers and just being able to unplug, working on single projects for such a long time that you don't really get to meet or talk with other thoughtbotters, miss the in-person connection and social activity, less random conversations and spontaneity, and we're really only seeing teammates in a working context. Another note is it's sometimes hard to remember to take breaks during the day. Conversations happen in a lot of different digital places, and it's hard to kind of keep track of that. Literal pain from no reason to get out of sitting in a chair all day. Awesome. So now that we've taken the time to read through that, the team will now take the remaining 3 minutes to use the red sticky notes on the right to identify the items that they feel like are the most crucial towards holding us back. And during this phase of the activity, there aren't really any rules in regards to how you can vote. You can choose to vote for your own idea. You can choose to put multiple red dots on a single idea if you feel like it's the most crucial from holding us back. Yeah. And if we wrap up the exercise early, the team can go ahead and move their mouse to the cursor zoom. And we could go ahead to the next step of the LDJ. No rush, by the way, either.
I'm loving this music.
Awesome. Okay, so it looks like our team wrapped up the exercise a little bit early. And so we'll look to see which of the problems our team identified. Looks like there was a vote on feeling isolated and sitting at a desk all day. Looks like there was another vote for meetings conflicting with scheduled chats. Not the ability, and it looks like our highest voted item was not really being able to see other team members or new thoughtbotters. Lack of social or in-person interaction, less random conversations and spontaneity, and pain from not getting out of the chair all day as well. All right, so now that we've taken the time to list out our problems and prioritize them, it's time to move on to step 4, which is reframing the problems as standardized challenges. During this stage of the activity, the moderator and the team will take the top voted items from the sailboat and reframe them as standardized challenges in preparation for solution ideation. For this activity, our team uses how might we statements as a means to turn problems into opportunities, as well as standardize the way that these challenges are written. So it makes it a little bit easier to problem solve and ideate later on in the session. Once the team is ready and we've copied the highest rated problems from the prioritization activity, the team will have 3 minutes to think of different how might we statements that tackle or turn the problem statement into an opportunity statement. So before we get started, we'll go ahead and have the team members bring the most voted on items over here, and we could get started once that's complete. Okay, so it looks like on the top issue that we'll be tackling will be not being able to see team members from other teams. The second issue that we'll be tackling will be missing in-person connection and lack of social activity. And it looks like we're waiting on the third most prioritized activity to get set.
We had multiple ones with one. So like maybe pick.
Okay, and which of those ones with one do we still have remaining?
Am I wrong? Do we have one that
I think you're correct.
Okay. Scheduling chats, compete with scheduled teams, don't want to interrupt people that are busy. Of the items that we've identified here, which ones do y'all believe are the most pressing or the ones that we need to prioritize the most for this activity?
I guess like that was one of the ones, and the other one was feeling isolated throughout the day.
Maybe because this one is about not getting out of your chair and this one's about sitting at a desk, we can combine them.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, that works.
So I think that's the one then.
Cool.
I'll move that over.
Yep, thank you. All right, so now that we've taken the time to identify the highest prioritized problems and group them by similar activities in the case that there are multiple items that have the same priority level, it's time for the team to go ahead and break these problems down into how might we statements. So I'm going to go ahead and change the music one more time to give our team members a little bit something to listen to and get started with the timer now. And so like I was saying beforehand, the idea of using the how might we statement is really two-pronged. One is to standardize the way that we're writing these challenges. And the second is really to turn these problem statements into opportunities for how our team might go about solving them, which then sets us up into the next phase of the LDJ. And if there are multiple how might we statements, that's okay as well. And some of the best practices that we figured out as well is to try multiple different phrasings before we really commit to one in the next phase of the assignment as well. It looks like we have about 1 minute left in this activity. It's like 30 seconds remaining. Great. So now that we've wrapped that up, let's take a look at what the team wrote down. So for the first problem of not being able to see team members from other teams, The how might we statements we came up with were: how might we increase inter-team discussion and strategy? How might we engage with team members on different projects more? How might we encourage cross-team connection? And how might we create opportunities to work with team members outside of our project teams? For problem 2, addressing missing in-person connection and social activity, the how might we statements we came up with were: how might we facilitate in-person connection at a physical level across the company, bring teammates together in person, and find a substitute for in-person connection. For problem 3, which is feeling isolated, sitting at a desk all day and having little pains from not having any reason to get out of the chair, some of the how might we statements are: how might we coordinate shared times to stretch or take breaks? How might we find more opportunities to leave our desk? How might we encourage better physical and mental health from our desks? And how might we support physical activity and breaks? So a lot of common themes that the team has identified here as well, which is awesome. So now that we've taken the time to standardize on the problems that we're solving, it's time to move on to step 5, which is ideating and massive solutions. So in this stage of the activity, the team members will have 5 minutes to think of solutions to the challenges and the how might we statements that we previously identified. The tip here is to think of solutions that are low effort and high impact. And if the team needs additional guidance, they could refer back to the original workshop goal, which is how to build genuine connections as a remote team. The team, very similar to before, will go ahead and write on the green sticky notes below, and we'll continue to do so until the time is up. So what we're doing now before we get started is copying all of the how might we statements, or categorizing and grouping them into their similar categories to nest into the solution matrix that we've outlined below. And rather than taking each of the individual sticky notes, given that we only have 5 swim lanes below, we'll take group by similar activities or similar how might we statements, or potentially even add swim lanes depending on how many different problem statements we're trying to tackle. Cool. So looks like we have a lot of our solutions laid out. Engaging with teams a little bit more, facilitating in-person connections, substitutes for in-person connections when those in-person connections cannot be made, encourage better physical and mental health from our desks, and support physical activities and breaks during the day. So now that the team has taken the time to nest the how might we statements, the team will also have 5 minutes to think of different solutions and ideas for for different ways we might be able to accomplish some of the how might we statements we set out to do. So going to again, add time to the timer, change the music, and then let our teams go at it and start to ideate. And so what you'll notice now is that right now the team members are taking the time to really create their workspace. So whether that be creating surplus sticky notes on the right that people can quickly enter in their thoughts on, being able to go down to your individualized working space and work there, or doing some sort of hybrid approach where you combine the best of both best practices. Really, it's all up to you as a team for how you prefer to kind of work as well. And in this particular stage of the activity, no idea is a bad idea. Obviously, being able to focus on solutions that have a high impact and low effort are ideal, given that they're a little bit easier to execute on. But in this stage, it's really all about getting as many ideas out there as possible. And it looks like we're about halfway there, just as a time check. And it looks like we have about 30 seconds left. Cool. Well, it looks like the team members have wrapped up and we can move on to the next step. So now that the team has taken the time to ideate around potential solutions, it's time to prioritize them. So first, as a moderator, I'll go ahead and read all of the solution ideas just to cover the canvas of what's been discussed. And then after that, very similar to what we did before, the team members will use the red voting dots to vote on the solutions that they believe will have the most impact in regards to how we solve our problem and move forward to building genuine connections. Once again, this activity will be done silently and without discussion, and the team will have 4 minutes to go ahead and do so. But beforehand, I'm going to first go ahead and read out the ideas that the team came up with. So for around ideas for how we might engage with team members on different projects more, some of the ideas were focus on group investment projects, cross-team project sharing, pairing with employees based on interests, shadowing teammates on other teams, offering skill sharing between teams and devs, working on group investment time projects together, and project demos just to get an idea for some of the things that some of the other fellow thoughtbotters are working on. For the how might we facilitate in-person connections, the ideas that we came up with were co-working and co-locating with similar thoughtbot members in similar locations, local meetups at parks, cafes, or co-working spaces, TB summits and meetups, utilize work from anywhere to have weeks where we work from a specific city and kind of plan to organize and get everyone out there. Go get lunch day together or alone, but should be done outside of the office confines. For the next one we have here is how might we find a substitute for in-person connection when an in-person connection can't be made? Remote happy hours, lightning talks about hobbies or interests, so kind of TED Talks, something with VR to simulate what it would be like to be in the office, book clubs, company white elephants for Christmas time, or really just whenever, and an employee gifts exchange. For how might we encourage better physical and mental health from our desk? The ideas we came up were Slack reminders to take breaks, group meditation or stretching, walk, run, or bike groups, encourage changing of working environments, audio only video walks, meaning your camera doesn't have to be on while you're walking, scheduling stretching breaks during the day, hiring an ergonomic consultant to help us become a little bit better with all of this. And I think somewhat tangentially is how might we support physical activity and breaks, share recurring stretching calendar, follow a YouTube yoga video, and that kind of pairs nicely with morning yoga plus meditation, making snacks or lunch together or taking cooking breaks during the day to kind of break that up, scheduling stretching breaks during the day, and then also just having general best practices for what stretches to do as well. So now that we've gone ahead and have taken the time to read all of the activities, the team will now have 4 minutes to take their 6 sticky notes or the 6 red dots and prioritize the solutions that they feel like will make the most impact towards moving us towards our goal. So I'm going to go ahead and get the timer started and get the music cued, and we'll allow the team members to go at it. And very similar to before, there aren't really any rules with how you choose to offer or spread your sticky notes. You could choose to vote for your own ideas. You could choose to use all 6 sticky notes on a single idea if you feel like that is the most crucial and impactful blocker or challenge or solution that will help us move us closer. But really, there's a lot of free reign in regards to how we use our dots. And the idea here is that after the end of the exercise, we'll take all of the sticky notes that have received more than one of the voting dots, and we'll use them in our next exercise, which will be really figuring out which of these solutions deliver the highest impact and require the lowest amount of effort. Awesome. And very similar to the previous activities, if we happen to wrap up a little bit early, the team members can move their mouse over to the cursor zoom, and we could wrap up a little bit early. But no rush, and feel free to take all the time you need to prioritize effectively. Cool. So it looks like we've wrapped up a little bit early. So let's take the time to see what we've decided on. So it looks like shadowing another teammate received a couple votes. Project demos and cross-team sharing received a vote. Sharing group time investment projects and more focus on group investment projects versus solo ones. Being able to pair with other employees based on similar interests. Local meetups are co-locating to work together. Utilizing the work from anywhere to have weeks where we work from a specific city, if that's something that, schedule and time permitting, we're able to do. Lightning talks about hobbies or interests. Company white elephant or employee gift exchange. Audio only outdoor walks. Hire an ergonomic consultant or partner with an expert in workplace for physical health. Stretching reminders on the calendar just to take breaks throughout the day. And lastly, make or snack together, cooking breaks during lunch to really kind of break it up. Awesome. So now that we've taken the time to list out some of our ideas as well as prioritize them based off of what we felt like we would make the most impact, it's time to decide on what to execute on next. So now the team will go ahead and take the highest voted on solutions or the items that received at least 2 dots on the prioritization. And together we'll quickly assess the impact of the solution, assess the effort required to implement it, and democratically move the sticky notes into the right quadrant of the impact and effort matrix that we have here on the right. The idea being that the x-axis represents effort, where items that are on the very, very right require a high amount of effort or a lot of complexity. Items closer to the left are items that can be done relatively easy without too much impact or effort. On the y-axis, we have impact. So, very similarly, items on the lower will not really move us too much further towards our goal, whereas items on the top will make a really big difference in terms of being able to build connections as a remote team. So I'm going to go ahead and get the timer started, since it looks like the team already got started, and allow them to go ahead and try to quickly assess where each of these items falls within the quadrant. And also during this activity as well, if there are really any thoughts in regards to the positioning of a certain sticky note where we either feel like it should be more impact, lower impact, higher effort, lower effort, this is the time to have those conversations or be able to, really kind of figure out which items we're kind of oscillating between different areas.
I think the scheduling stretching breaks would have more than a really low impact. I
think that's fair. I believe that you're right.
Maybe a little bit less about connection and more about physical health, but
yeah, that's true.
If they were if we were stretching together, I think it applies.
Everyone has to stretch together and talk about their favorite hobby.
Right. And just to bring it back to the goal was really about trying to find ways to build genuine connections as a remote team. So just being able to ask ourselves that and being able to go through this matrix, because again, it looks like our team has come to a pretty good shared understanding for where a lot of these items may fall. So if we feel pretty good about where we left off and there aren't any conversations or hot topic debates on where we really feel like each of these items should go, we could quickly kind of look over the matrix to see where each of these items kind of fell in and move on to the next activity if that works. Cool. Great. So going to go ahead and stop the timer, since our team did a pretty amazing job at reaching a consensus really quickly. And we'll go ahead and start looking at some of the items that we've identified in the sweet spot, which is the top left quadrant of our impact and effort matrix, meaning that these are the items that will deliver the most and significant change to helping us reach our goal while requiring the least amount of effort. So the first one we've identified is pairing with employees based on interests for chats. Next is sharing group investment time projects amongst other team members. The next one is shadow a teammate on another team. Next would be making lunch or snacking together. And then local meetups at parks, cafes, or co-working spaces. Assuming that you happen to live in the same area with a fellow team member as well. Everyone good with the items that we've identified here? Are there any items that we feel like we're missing?
I was really excited about this one, the utilize work from anywhere one. It's got kind of on the line, but
does anyone have any thoughts in regards to where it's kind of sitting on the effort impact matrix? Is this something that we, maybe a little bit longer term of a goal, but something that we feel like would be beneficial to all the team members here?
I feel like it would have a lot of, to me, it's like that. Like it could take a lot of, it might be super impactful, but it also might take a lot more effort.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
necessarily disagree.
You
It
disagree?
depends, like it depends on how coordinated it is. Like if it's just kind of like a message like, hey, let's all like work in Austin this week if you can, like that's not that much effort, but it's the effort if you decide to actually do it.
Right. And I'm sure there's probably things we could do to tying it to like an event or a conference where having a reason to go out there and being able to schedule a little bit more time to co-work or collaborate could potentially be something there, but no.
Maybe it's similar to the local meetups. Because it's kind of the same thing, like co-working.
Yeah, I think it's a really big impact. It's a big effort if the company actually like sponsors it. Like that might be impossible.
Yes.
But if it's like on your own, like people who are already there or close or just have relatives there or whatever could meet here, and it's just kind of like this is the week for that if you want to. It might not be that difficult to organize.
You did a good job. I see what you're going for.
I could see a tool or a solution that handles both of these things. And like, maybe it's just visible to people in other places to come to your own hometown to join in a local thing.
Cool. So everyone happy with moving this into the high impact, medium to low effort column? Everyone feel pretty good about this?
You win, Jason. You win.
Awesome.
This is why we don't do the convincing until the end.
True.
Yeah, because this would have been the first one. Awesome. Okay, well, cool. Now that we've identified the items in our sweet spot, it's time to move on to step 8, which is making these solutions actionable. So now the team is going to go ahead and move all of the items that we've identified in the low to medium effort to high impact sweet spot and bring them over here to the right side, where the team will then have 5 minutes to think of 3 different action steps that can help us move forward to this solution. Ideally, these steps should take less than 2 weeks to complete and are measurable and something that we could quantify in regards to actually making an impact as well. So right now, the team is currently taking the time to set up the board and make sure that all of the solutions that we've identified that are high impact and low effort are nested on the board here, and also taking the time to kind of group together similar activities should that kind of be the case. But once the team is ready with this and we feel comfortable to actually start the activity, we'll go ahead and get the timer set for 5 minutes, and once again choose some good music to figure out some solutions to this exercise. Cool. Do we have the board set up? Everyone feel ready to dive in?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's get it started then.
So let's go left to right, probably.
I guess like this one, it's like a question of whether we're going to make it like work on a tool or like just kind of organize it with Slack or something.
Yeah, the first thing would probably be like figure out the cadence or the period and time you want to do it, right?
Yeah.
So like schedule time. That way, if we know everyone's free to do it. The other thing we could consider is there are multiple places that we all work from. So it might be identify the locations.
Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe that's the first one. Identify possible locations.
Yeah,
Swap them.
And it doesn't have to be a place where we already have
Yeah.
people.
that's true.
A cool ranch in Montana.
Wherever there's Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So we know, so the possible locations will be like based on who's interested and shows engagement. Then we can figure out how to schedule it once we have all the people.
I guess maybe like identify interest is the first. I think maybe those are
Yeah.
the 3 steps. Just this is.
Eventually you need some sort of tool to help facilitate.
Yeah.
Meeting up.
Interests, locations based on that, and then schedule it. That seems like it would be the overall steps
Yeah.
to take there. We'll move on to the pair employees based on interest, which is kind of interesting because this first step could be this. So I would like to create a poll. Could be,
Well,
what do you think?
we have the interest in Hub already that we could leverage. I mean, you'd have to gauge interest in like even joining some sort of pairing thing.
Mhm.
But dude, I was imagining this was like I like to talk about movies or like
Yeah, like
Uh,
cycling or
yeah.
baking or something that,
not
I
how to
think I
organize
wrote
your
this part.
CSS.
yeah, you were like, I just want to talk about JavaScript frameworks.
Yeah.
Poll for interests at company, just to see like an open-ended poll. Everyone could like submit it, what they're interested in.
These are the kind of things that like naturally happen at a like lunch conversation that like
Mhm.
don't have a chance to happen.
That's true.
So I think this could be even like a session where we split into groups to talk about our interests could encompass both. Like some people might be talking about the latest framework, and other people might be talking about the movies they watched last week. Like
That's true.
I think it's
You got-
just some way to how can we quickly like break out into conversations everybody's excited about.
Yep. And that could even be just like establishing a calendar of like themes, you know,
Yeah.
like one could be food, one could be, you know, fitness, one could be art.
Mhm.
And then everyone just brings their interpretation of what that means. So it still stays like wide, you know?
Yeah.
Is the pairing aspect of this important, or would like a larger group be?
Yeah, I
okay.
think when I wrote this one, I just meant like to couple, like not pair or couple, but just like group people,
Okay.
Yeah.
group employees based on interests for chat. That way you could have like, I was trying to think of like interest clubs or something, you know? Oh no, Bryce, the music.
We
I'm
burned all
gonna
our
give us
time.
give us a little bit more time since this is kind of the wrap up step. So
Yeah, Nice.
yeah, no, I think we're going about this the right way. I think we're identifying the right steps. Just maybe we need a little bit more time to make them a little bit more actionable as well. So going to go ahead and give us another 5 minutes, since I know that have a little bit of extra time towards the end, and I think people will be very interested to see what we kind of come up with. So yeah, let's go ahead and give it another 5 minutes and kind of just jam through it.
What about Slack channels? So you can chat asynchronously.
Yeah, I mean that exists, right? Like
A few, but
yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking more of like that donut that we use, like would somehow know, like put these three people together and they'll be excited about talking about like bicycle gears or whatever.
That's true. So what could be
Mhm.
kind of cool is if you figure out what the interests are, maybe you can get the people who are interested in it to create like icebreaker questions around it. Because it could be like if you're all cyclists, like what are you riding currently? You know, like something like that. Or if you're all into baking, like what's your favorite, you know, tool in the kitchen that you can't live without, or something like that.
And just to be cognizant of time, guys, we have 4 minutes left, so maybe we want to jump to some of the other ones, just so we have at least some of the action steps listed for, you know, some of the other items we identified as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So on to shadowing a teammate on another team.
This one I feel like is a simpler one because it might just be finding out what you're interested in that you're not working on currently, and then finding someone who's like a thought leader in that.
Cool. So those are the first 2 steps.
So it's like identify.
Cool. And while Steven's kind of taking the lead on the shadowing a teammate, Jason, if you wanted to maybe get started on the making lunch or snacks together and identifying some of those steps that we could take to putting that into action, that would be awesome. Cool. And while Jason and Stephen do that, Andrew, if you could go ahead and work on the last item, which is local meetups at parks, cafes, or co-working spaces. I think we should be in a pretty good spot in the next 2 minutes or so.
I would love to make themes for the breakfast calls. You can have like a huevos rancheros morning.
That's amazing.
That sounds pretty good.
Or like how to make the best cup of coffee that you know possible.
I would definitely tune into that. Okay, cool. So it looks like we've taken the time to go through each of the action steps. So maybe now we could kind of just identify what we've discovered. So shadow a teammate on another team. Looks like identifying skills you'd like to shadow or learn is the first step. Pairing with members that, you know, currently are doing that or have similar interests is the next step. And then 3 is making time to actually shadow and putting that into action. The next is making lunch or snacks together. And really this starts with creating a channel for interest in this, scheduling group calls during snack times or potentially around different dishes or meals that we're planning on cooking. And the last is to really come up with different themes for breakfast, or I guess really any other meal that we kind of share together as well.
Yeah,
But
I took that as an example, but it's clear like
clearly a breakfast one, which you know, more power to us. So, and the last one is local meetups at parks and cafes. Looks like the first step is to identify people in shared locations who are interested in. 2, designating and finding places to meet. And 3, scheduling reoccurring meetings or making time to actually meet and accommodate those. So now that we've run through the LDJ, talked about the problems, talked about the priority, identified solutions, and went about kind of prioritizing, this is where we ended up, where with all of these solutions that we have 3 different action items that are all doable within a 2-week time that we could quickly test, measure, and validate before making a broader decision. And I believe that brings us to the top of the hour. So thank you very much for joining us today as we went through our LDJ on how to build remote connections as a team. And just would like to thank you for staying tuned as well.
Thanks.
Cool.
That was
Thanks, guys.
that was fun.
do we stop the recording? Is it something that we could do?
Sure, I think that makes sense.
Is it something that Liz has to do?
Yeah, I can end the recording and the webinar. Thanks,
Cool.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks guys.